Today on the Topping Show, a survey shows that DEI is only popular with white women with college degrees. David Hogg says that we have school shootings because of democracy. Gavin Newsom wants a $2.8 billion bailout after he gave away free healthcare for illegals. A 2002 Acura NSX sells for $370,000, marking a record on Bring a Trailer. And General Motors says they're allowed to sell your data because you're using the public roads. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapter, so you can mount it to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have a 2002 Acura NSX selling for $370,000, marking a new record on Bring a Trailer, and she looks nothing short of beautiful. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Adam Eastmail, who's a writer at thedrive.com. Here you can see that iconic Acura NSX, or if you're anywhere but the United States, it's the Honda NSX. But you know, we like fancy premium things in America, so we like Acura. That's a fun fact of the day. They thought no one in America would buy a Honda supercar, so they badged it to Acura in the United States, which I still think it was a smart marketing move to do that, since, again, make more money with premiums and your fancier items. Great halo car for the Acura brand, which, again, Honda owns Acura. It's their luxury version, just like Toyota, owning Lexus, and Nissan. Well, they really have luxury. They have Infiniti, but that's more of a joke these days. Now, they say, quote, "Is this Acura NSX just sold for $370,000? What do you even say anymore? The Silverstone Metallic NSX with a dealer-installed supercharger and 9,000 miles, just a record for the most expensive NSX sold on Bring a Trailer," which, yeah, probably one of the, it's a dangerous website. You'll spend a disproportionate amount of your time window shopping at that site and never placing bids. I may or may not know from personal experience. Now, they say, quote, "This NA2 Acura NSX with a Comtech supercharger kit and about 9,100 recorded miles cost $89,745, including shipping when it was new in 2002. I think gas was also a nickel back then. Okay, it wasn't that bad, but Nickelback was a popular band back then. That kind of ages it. And they say in today's money, it's about 100, geez, inflation, the silent theft. In today's money, that's $157,500. You could double that conversion and still not land anywhere near this Silverstone Metallic NSX that just sold on Bring a Trailer. Once the auction hit $260,000, a pair of bidders battled for nearly 2 days when the hammer came down at an eye-watering $370,000. Let's get some extra pictures of this beautiful piece of Japanese engineering, which I was debating if I like the first version or the second version of the NSX, where this one does not have the pop-up headlights. This is the refreshed, a couple years into the model, or the development and manufacture of the car. You always do a facelift and give a little bit more stuff to make it fancier. It looks slick and really cool right there, but part of me likes the very, very original. I had the pop-up headlights, which, well, of course, that would date that even more. Now, they say, quote, "What's interesting about this particular case is that you wouldn't expect a, quote, modified car to return such a record-setting bid." Really? The difference here is that the NSX supercharger was installed by the original dealer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a dealer install. It's like factory approved. Fascinatingly enough, that usually isn't much of a detriment to collector cars. Kind of like Honda. Well, Honda has a Honda factory performance package, like for the Honda Civic Si I really wanted, but couldn't justify the cost when I got mine, where you could get some extra pieces of, well, yeah, it's a whole package, but really just extra pieces of plastic bolted onto it, slightly better suspension, and well, that's it. And it does look pretty slick. You get new tires, new rims, or I believe it went from 18 to 19-inch rims on the Civic HFP package. But again, if it's dealer installed, that is the one time where it doesn't seem to destroy the car's value. Aftermarket, and it's sad and hilarious when you see these used cars for sale, when they're custom, the rule of thumb is the more you customize it, the less it's worth. Because again, it's very unique to you. That's why when you trade a car in, they always, knock down the value if it's customized. So I always tell people to keep the original parts if they have them, or the space ability to, house them. Now, his say, quote, Pikes Peak Acura in Colorado, which also added a custom exhaust system and a rear strut tower brace for the sports car before the owner took delivery. That's about as legitimate of an official mod as you can get, and it may have actually helped this particular NSX rather than hurt it. They continue saying, quote, Silverstone Metallic on gray leather was also reportedly an uncommon spec for 2022. I'm more of a indie yellow / Formula Red guy myself. That's kind of a rarity, which, yeah, there's a really nice 2000, I think it was a 2001 model NSX in DFW. It's yellow. You see it every once in a while in the summer. It looks amazing. Now, they say, quote, the post-sale comments represents a mix of incredulity at the final price, as well as satisfaction from current NSX owners, which, yeah, most people like to see the stuff they own go up in value. And then they can say, hey, my Acura is worth this much more because a similar, well, not too similar Acura NSX just sold for this. Now they say that sales like this leave me wonder, never quite knowing how to feel. On one hand, it's $370K is a chump change to you, and you really want this. Who's going to stop you? I also thought that that's within NSXR territory, but no, those tend to be priced considerably higher, at least twice as much as higher. Jeez Louise. Then again, RM Southern Beast tried to move a NA1 NSXR in Miami last year, projected for $500,000, and nobody bid. Yeah, that's a pretty penny. Let me actually go down and show a couple more pictures of this beautiful feat of engineering. And again, it's revolutionary for Honda, which to this day, Honda is really known for reliability over performance. So again, I love my Civic Si, but yeah, this is a time when, Italian supercars were, trying to think of a good metaphor, as reliable as a Ford. That is to say, yeah, utter junk. They were unreliable, expensive, but they were loud and fun. I'll give them that. The Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and they still had the courtesy to give the customers a third pedal, like they should always. And Acura, Honda came out and said, hey, what if you make a supercar that's actually fun and reliable? Now, it is a little disappointing that, again, from the factory, it's a V6 engine, which, again, at that time, even to this day, when people buy a supercar, usually want a V8 or bigger. But they used to have nice 12 cylinders glory in the Italian vehicles before the governments tried to shut them down and make less exciting and, well, less cylinders, less fun. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see these sell more and more. And again, it's one of those things where, not investment advice. I think these will continue to go up in value. They will not beat the S&P 500. Few things in the world ever have in terms of an actual investment. But again, when you like the analog beauty of this, the lack of technology, the manual option, the fact that not too dissimilar to the Ford GT, the new Ford GT is a V6, which already turned off some people, and it is also mostly technology and mostly a computer on wheels. It's an automatic transmission too. And that's why, again, I think that the original Ford GT will eventually, within maybe 5, 10 years, 15 years, surpass the second market value compared to the new Ford GT, just like the Acura. There's a really famous commercial about the Acura NSX coming back out. It got some fanfare with Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld doing a funny commercial because they're, both gearheads. They want the first SKU or the first VIN number. It was a cute commercial, but which car is going to withstand the test of time? Which one is a better driving experience? The NSX, the new one, it came out, but it was mostly bland, partially because there's just too much hype and they didn't deliver. So they said they're going to have this cool car, and they took way too long, and a lot of the excitement, I think, went away. I think that's a variable of why they're not as popular as other competitive sports cars in that category. But again, I think long-term, these are going to be solid, fun cars, and you'll never get it again, in part because of regulations around emissions, but also, don't have to, can't forget, you also have all the safety things where you have to have 58 million airbags in a vehicle and be able to jump off and do a somersault if you get in an accident these days. I'm only partially exaggerating, but again, there's, this does have an airbag, the specific vehicle, but again, compared to modern safety technology regulations, I really don't see this being made as it was anytime soon. So again, I thought it was really cool to see this go for sale. Shoot, way beyond my budget, but shoot, wouldn't that be a fun dream come true to own one of these marvels of engineering? But let me know in the comments, do you think that was just completely overpriced? Do you think this actually crashed down in value? Let me know, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the cultural part podcast, you have DEI apparently is only wanted by white college women. Well, obviously liberal. Who would have thunk this? Which, well, I think most of us, but it's cool to see the statistics actually coming to the forefront. And this is one of the most viral things that went on social media the past couple weeks, actually. This is originally posted by Eric Daughtry on X or Twitter, in which I believe he's also quoting this reporter on MSNBC, which somehow is still in business. For the life of me, I don't know how, but they're still in business somehow. And he says, actually, he just quotes the gentleman on screen. It's about 46 seconds long. And I'm trying to see if they actually, unfortunately, I don't, it's a little blurry. I'm trying to see the source of the survey, but not too much further ado. This is goes to opinion Trump as well as DEI.
See this. White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters that really kind of is on the left politically, aligned with progressive causes.
By a comical margin. So white men, no degree, and this is opinion of Trump, plus 41. White men college, plus 1. White women, no degree, plus 14. White women with college, negative 38.
Democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question, right here that we asked about in our poll. We had two big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say.
So his percentages, he's not actually, I'll list them out. So the question was, should we continue DEI programs? White men with no degrees, only 25% said yes. White men with college degrees, 40% said yes. White women with no degree, 43% said yes. And white women with college degree, 68%.
Say white women, no degree, wow. End it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin. They say to continue DEI. See this.
That is an insane delta, and perhaps one of the many variables in terms of why am I still single? There's definitely a lack of shared values these days. Now, this pretty valid got, what was this, 7 million views, as well as 21,000 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. And one of the first comments comes to us thanks to Matt Von Swole, says, quote, genuine question, why do they think this? Gained 1.3 thousand likes. Now, Eric does respond saying, quote, it's hard to say exactly, but I think women are the group targeted most by higher education. May certainly become more liberal on average, but because women are already predisposed to be liberal as is, the delta there just gets amplified. You have clubs, programs, initiatives, and culture at universities that use young women's emotions to develop ideologies within them. It's part of feeling that you belong. That's certainly a huge part of it. And they are not presented with the alternative or choosing opinion or opposing opinions. As young men, many of the times they're pushed away and cannot engage. I got 1.7 thousand likes, and I was gonna say, I think that's a pretty good analysis of why that might be. These college campuses are mostly indoctrination campuses at this point. I mean, it's ironic that they always brag about diversity. In terms of diversity of opinion, even going to the college in the Midwest, like I did, there really wasn't much. I had a couple, like one libertarian professor, maybe 2 conservative professors out of my whole tenure. And granted, it wasn't a long tenure, you just got a bachelor's degree. But yeah, in terms of the activities, the curriculum, where they're, who's instructing them, it really is mostly left. And these days, extremely radical left, I would argue. Now, Paul Zazupa also says, quote, shows us how useless college degrees are, getting 177 likes, which useless or hurtful? I almost debate hurtful with how much long-term college debt people get and how little you gain in value, especially without businesses these days saying, yeah, we do not care about degree. That's no longer a requirement. Now, I also have Cool Christian Engineer who says, quote, what we need now, and he says, quote, this is actually a quote by Bruce says, quote, DI needs to die. Diversity is weakness. Unity is strength. Equity leads to mediocrity. Equality leads to excellence. Inclusion to some means exclusion to others. Don't. Hire the best you can afford. Treat them well. Insist they treat each other and the consumer well, and ultimately train them and expect them to be exceptional. And that should have got more likes. I like it myself. That got 77 likes. You also have pro-American politics saying, quote, white liberal women. I was going to say, click that subscribe button. When I first started the show, I spoke faster than Ben Shapiro and more awkwardly than Joe Biden climbing upstairs. But as I've slowly but surely got more subscribers, I've been a little bit better at speaking. Some might argue it's just a modicum improvement, but a statistical improvement nevertheless, which fuels my theory. If you click that subscribe button, I get enough subscribers, I will make it through an entire episode speaking perfectly and articulately, hopefully. That's my theory. So click that button and tell your friends. I'd appreciate it. Heck, even tell your enemies. They might become your friends, or they might hate the content so much they become greater enemies and might lead to some entertaining results. Maybe I shouldn't recommend that. But nevertheless, pro-American politics says, quote, white liberal women are the most hate-filled and destructive force on planet Earth. Getting 1.8 thousand likes. Whoa. Philip Anderson says, quote, white women with a degree have been brainwashed completely. Getting 1.1 thousand likes. Booker T in the MAGA MG42 says, quote, young liberal women are statistically the unhappiest and most mentally ill demographic in America, which, yeah, it's true. They've actually done a couple studies with appropriate sample sizes. And yeah, they pulled like who's the happiest and who's most miserable. Spoiler, it's college gals at degrees. And here you have a cliche college gal who has blue hair and the cow ring, which I don't know who's telling women that's attractive, but I see it more and more every day. I don't know who's telling them this. Who's the influencer? Who's lying to women to tell them that's attractive? It's not. They need to stop. Now, that got 632 likes. You also have Uniparty Bad saying, quote, translation, white women who attend college universities are easily brainwashed, getting 680 likes. And I'm scrolling down pretty good. I haven't seen any contrarian comments thus far. Here's an exceptional quote. I mean, one of the best books, yeah, I would say of all time is 1984 by George Orwell. Can't help but think there's a reason they don't have that at public schools a lot these days on the curriculum. But nevertheless, there's a quote by George Orwell that was posted by Reality Check. And he says, quote, it's always the women and above the young ones that are the most bigoted adherents of the party, the swallowers of slogans, and amateur spies. And that's a quote from 1984 by George Orwell. If you have kids, a book by George Orwell that gets you the same themes, but more easily digestible in terms of vernacular and shorter length, it would be Animal Farm. That's another good one. Yeah, so not too many contrarian comments here, and yeah, we'll see. Again, liberal white women are a huge voting bloc, obviously. We'll see if, this has become a political issue. Will Democrats continue to invest in the idea of DEI? It's federally and it's been struck down as illegal. We also have a lot of places that are just rebranding it. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for those types of programs. And I mean, culturally speaking, I think the average person is kind of over it. And I mean, smart businesses are taking every single resume and not discriminating. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part of the podcast, you have David Hogg saying that we have shootings because of democracy, which I would say is about as intelligent as anything else David Hogg says. That is to say, not at all, because, that bar's pretty low. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Eric Daughtry on X. He says, whoa, DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, the party's new face, issues stunning new statement on democracy. And, well, David Hogg did one intelligent thing in his life. He did suit up for the occasion. So, I mean, he did one smart thing in his life. It's a low bar, but still. There's David Hogg here.
For them, because we go out there as Democrats all the time and say democracy is the most important thing. We have to defend democracy. We fail to acknowledge that this generation, democracy is what put us through school shooter drills and school shootings. It's what's put us through the climate crisis and so much more. What we have to do is prove that democracy matters by standing up to the special interests that are killing the American dream and making our young people lose faith, not only in our party, but the future of this country. That is why.
Special interest. Like the party trying to destroy the middle class with increased taxation regulation. Yeah. School shootings. Yeah, I don't think so. People forget, back in the day, schools had rifle racks. Because kids would bring them to school, and after school, they would either have, competitive trap shooting or skeet shooting, or they would go hunting, get some dinner for the family. We've also, fun fact, had quote-unquote high-capacity magazines for well over 100 years. Or as we call them in Texas, standard capacity magazines, because that was what came with the rifle by default. And yeah, we didn't have any of these issues. I think there are many variables of why we've seen an increase in frequency. One of the biggest ones being single parent households, especially fatherless households. Now that's something that has changed dramatically since the government tried to interfere and say, we're going to help out single moms by incentivizing them so they actually have more of a fiscal gain by pushing the husband out. Now, again, that doesn't happen every single time in terms of there are obviously some women who do need some help, obviously. But after the government rolled out those programs that incentivized it, the rates shot up by like 4 or 5x. And again, we look at like what kids are most successful, who's the most well-adjusted. The ones that are from single-parent households struggle the most. Also, I don't think it's coincidence in terms of how many pills kids are popping these days from Big Pharma. That's another big thing that's changed the past, 20, 30 years. But no, he's saying democracy is why we have that. Maybe it's also those gun-free zones that Democrats like to push so much, where teachers who, many of them are already qualified, legally speaking, in states that do require a CHL or a concealed handguns license permit, well, they're forced to be disarmed in those gun-free zones. The bad guys know that. The students who want to cause evil know that. That is another thing that's changed radically. And yet, no, he's saying democracy is why we have that. Really? Now, again, he will probably, how much will he make from this clip? He'll probably raise a couple million from this clip. Again, there's some people who will believe him. It's just quite scary. And this went pretty viral. Got 1.5 million views, as well as 5.5 thousand likes. Well, the first comments, well, not by number of likes, but perhaps by the rating of handsomeness. It's me, the topping show. I say, quote, hashtag find retards. Found one for you. David Hogg, LOL. Got 24 likes. Cool Christian engineer says, quote, how to make friends with a leftist. And there's a WikiHow article, well, fake, but it says WikiHow how to make friends with leftists, and they're standing outside a mental health center, getting 164 likes. Now, another issue also, Ronald Reagan did shut down the mental institutes way back in the day as well. That also could be a variable of why we're having these continued issues in public schools. Again, I think there are many variables that contribute to it. I think one of the best ways to stop them would be, having appropriate security and maybe not disarming teachers from their God-given right to defend themselves. But it's my 3 cents. It used to be 2 cents, but hyperinflation got to be 3 cents. Now, you also have whale psychiatrist saying, quote, LOL, this kid is an idiot. Getting 1.9 thousand likes, which he is, but a wise man once said never underestimate your opponent, whether it be in politics, business, or sports balls. Because again, his message is going to resonate with a lot of folks. Mostly leftists, but again, a lot of them have a lot of deep pockets. It's funny how it says, so yeah, the other side has big NGOs and big donors. Yeah, spoiler alert, big tech and big pharma. If you look at where the employees donate dramatically, it's over 95% to Democrats. Now, some of the businesses also directly donate. Sometimes it's just the employees. And when, again, 90+% of all employees donate to one side of the political aisle, I can't but think that company probably has a little bit of bias and incentive mechanisms to push those things. Now, you also have the conservative alternative saying, quote, so he's basically calling for dictatorship because democracy has failed. Got it. People prepare accordingly. Getting 993 likes. The researcher says, quote, Democrats are not for democracy. They're for totalitarianism, Marxist, and communist. Getting 441 likes. So it literally says dinner. That's her name? No, dimmer. Huh, I need glasses. Well, not yet. It says, quote, I've never seen a party just straight kamikaze themselves like Dems are right now. Getting 688 likes. Let's see. Is anyone sticking up for David Hogg? JP Liberty says, quote, or it's a picture of Adolf and it says, what's a meme? Yeah, it's a meme. It says, quote, if we could just jail Trump, get rid of MAGA and the end of the Electoral College, stack the Supreme Court, ban voter ID, and censor free speech, we could have democracy. Getting 152 likes, which, yeah, it's also concerning that, yeah, those are all ideals that they're pushing for on the left. And again, David Hogg is becoming more and more of a figure of the Democrat Party. I mean, he's well dressed. Well, his words aren't not intelligent, but they are articulate. He's speaking quite clearly, which, again, that's more than I can do most days. So, again, we'll be interested to see what his future is in the party. I also have one of my favorite memes of David Hogg. It's from Squirrel Run Farm, and his white t-shirt, which, again, who wears a t-shirt to a podium? But nevertheless, it's a David Hogg, and his t-shirt says semen is a food group, getting 19 likes. But let me know in the comments. I mean, do you think he's a future Democrat Party? He already has a position, but how much influence do you think he could have that may actually help Democrats? Or do you think it might backfire and the average American doesn't resonate with his ideals, and you actually have some Democrats, flip and donate to Republicans and vote differently? Let me know in the comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Gavin Newsom wanting a $2.8 billion bailout for California after they give, billions of funds for illegals for their healthcare. Which, yeah, it's kind of depressing. It should make more people irate when you think of how much we pay in taxes and how little do we get, and how little does the average American get. I mean, we give other countries alone billions and billions and billions of dollars every single year. Actually, no, it's over $1 trillion in deficit spending these days. Well, granted, a lot of it is U.S. things too, but I can't help but think if you're looking at the pie chart of U.S. tax dollars and where they're allocated, how much does it actually benefit taxpayers? I can't help but think, well, granted, it's not zero, but can't help but think it would be pretty gosh darn near close. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Lives at TikTok, and she says, quote, Gavin Newsom is asking for a $2.8 billion bailout for California's Medicaid program after he opened it up to illegals. This is on top of the $3.4 billion loan issued last week. This marks nearly $6.2 billion in just a few weeks. Why should taxpayers fund Medicaid for illegals? Which, yeah, that's a good question. It looks like this news clip is credited to 8 News, or KB, also known as K5BW. I don't want to say it's a boring name, but makes topping sound a lot better than in comparison.
Governor Gavin Newsom says the state short on funds for its Medicaid program known as Medi-Cal. The state expanded the program to cover undocumented immigrants.
Of course.
Governor asked lawmakers to approve another $2.8 billion in loans on top of a $3.4 billion loan issued last week. So California now making up a $6.2 billion shortfall in Medi-Cal funds. The money meant to keep the program properly funded through June.
The realities are the realities. You have to balance budgets. We balance our budget. Revenues holding up. I don't see anything significant along the lines of what some have asserted. But I do see the need to make adjustments and changes broadly in the Medicaid system.
We balance our budget. Also, we need more money because we have a deficit. I can't. It's almost unfathomable that people keep voting for him. Now, this pre-eval got 2.1 million views and 47,000 likes. One of the first comments come to us thanks to Hunter Eagleman saying, quote, Gavin is one of the worst governors in the country, getting 2.1 thousand likes. We also have Paul Zupa saying, quote, Gavin Newsom is spending close to $9 billion on free healthcare for illegals in 2024. Why is a single federal tax dollars going to California? It's a good question. Good question. And specifically, it looks like $8.4 billion. As an article from the same newspaper looks like, getting 1.4 thousand likes. Arthur Eagleman says it's treason, getting 1,000 likes, which sure sounds like it. Let's see. Planet of Memes should say this alleged Planet of Memes, because there is in fact no meme today. Saying, quote, there should be no bailout. California should suffer because of their idiocy of their governor and the people who flee people should flee California, getting 192 likes. Yes, and remember, Texas is shaped like a square. It's very close. You're from California. Just remember. I'm only partially kidding. Someday I'll afford a house, but everyone keeps moving here. Jeez Louise. Man, if they do move here, for the love of God, remember why you moved. Your policies suck. They failed. If you're, a Democrat leaving a Democrat hellhole. Matt Van Swole says, quote, zero tax dollars should go towards healthcare for illegal immigrants. Zero. This is insanely stupid. Getting 3.7 thousand likes. Genia Broderick says, quote, tell Gavin to go fish. Getting 636 likes, which, yeah, that's an old card game reference. I haven't heard that one in a while, actually. Yeah, so, again, we'll see how much more federal funds they get. But, yeah, I've said it once. I've said it a million times. California is, I would say it's appropriate to say they are the most mismanaged state in all the United States. And I don't know a single person or business has moved there in, 48 months plus. Hundreds of businesses have, and millions of people have left. Again, businesses are losing California, so they're leaving left and right. But, yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have General Motors saying, well, they could sell your data because you're using public roads, which is you didn't need one, but as if you didn't already have enough reasons not to buy a General Motors product, here is yet another one. I'm not saying that book of reasons is thicker than a Ford book of reasons, but it's comparable. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com. Specifically, this is Anthony Alans, so right over there, and they say, quote, GM argues it can sell your data because you drive on public roads. You have no reasonable expectations of privacy when you're in public, even if you're driving a car, according to GM. Anyway, which, here you can see the inside of the Cadillac, which costs more than a house in Iowa, which, well, okay, that's not saying much, but yeah, those big, bland, boring SUVs. I do love the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing and CT5V Blackwing. I mean, twin-turbo V6 or a V8, and you get a stick shift. That's a great, fun track toy. But now you have to spend a couple $100 removing a ginormous computer from it as well, which, for track purposes, reduces the weight and actually would be better for performance-wise, but nevertheless. Now, diving into the article, they say, quote, the battle over who owns and controls your driving data is being fought in court. General Motors is facing a multi-district lawsuit that claims the Detroit-based automaker allegedly violated its customers' privacy by collecting and selling their driver information without proper consent. However, GM is arguing that it does not violate their privacy because it's, quote, driving a vehicle which necessarily involves conduct that takes place in public roads cannot form a basis of privacy for a privacy-based claim, unquote. Which, not to be a smartass, but it will. Guess what you have to use to get to the public road? Technically speaking, your private domicile, which is a word only people only know because of Breaking Bad, which I only know because of YouTube Shorts. But nevertheless, your car is also in your garage, and it's going to be shooting off all that data. It's going to be on your property. So yeah, you are using public roads, but they're also tracking you, 24/7 with the current crap that they make. So if they want to get into technicalities, we can get into technicalities. And again, I'm not a lawyer, though I do own a suit. Now, they say, quote, according to GM's filing to dismiss the case, states do not permit invasion of privacy claims that are based on public conduct, unquote, even though specific state laws vary regarding invasion of privacy claims. In Georgia, where the case is filed, observing someone, quote, in a public place is not an intrusion of one's privacy. Also, many states follow the replacement of torts, which says that observing a person's public conduct, even on a public highway, cannot constitute a violation of the person's policy because their conduct is, quote, open to the public eye. For example, if you feel someone you publicly breaking into a car, it can be used against you in court. GM notes that, quote, driving data includes vehicle location, driving routes, braking events, and speed, all of which occur on public thorough roads, unquote. Want to know why your insurance went up? GM has been selling this to them as well. Fun fact of the day. Now they say, quote, citing a 2015 case where the court determined that someone surveilled by a drone did not have privacy violated because the surveillance occurred on public space. Now, the GM says, quote, while the plaintiff claims that they're filing that they had a, quote, reasonable expectation of privacy, roadways are public and the pavers are observed by all. Is it observed by all for a couple feet while they're driving past? Or is it observed by all when you're tracking them hundreds of miles, thousands of miles? Now, they continue to say, quote, this is just one argument that defendants, Lenexis and Versk, which purchased driving data from GM and are also defendants. They say, quote, made a similar claim that requested dismissal of the case. Plaintiffs allege that driving data was collected on their vehicles as they drove on public roads. Courts consistently hold that there are no reasonable expectations of privacy of driving actively on public roads. This is just one argument defendants are using in their effort to dismiss the case. The plaintiffs also allege the automaker violated the Federal Wiretap Act and Stored Communications Act and the Computer Fraud Act and Abuse Act, which GM and OnStar counter with their 111-page filing. GM discontinued the Smart Driver program in April 2024, which was collecting customer driver data. They say, quote, GM isn't wrong to say that public conduct is observable by all, but today's level of surveillance leaves little room for people to hide. I remember being repeatedly told in driver's education that driving was a privilege and not a right, and that the law could revoke a license as quickly as it's issued if you broke the law. Now they continue saying, quote, that often meant a police officer had to catch you breaking the law and issue a ticket, which you could challenge in court in hopes of reducing it to a lesser offense. Now your car can log every infraction you commit, intentional or not, and transmit that data to an automaker that could then sell it to your insurance company, potentially raising your rates, and no citation needed or ability to plead down to a lesser charge. Yep. In addition to privacy, it's going to cost you a pretty penny as well. And yeah, there's already people who don't like GM because of their lack of reliability with nearly most everything they make, but as if you needed yet another reason not to buy them, now you have this. Now, I'm glad the lawsuit is being filed because it's getting a lot of publicity and people should know what they're buying. I don't think the average user who's buying a new General Motors vehicle, all 18 of them, realize how much they're being tracked, even more so, more invasive than anywhere else, which is saying something. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of the day how this plays out. But again, it's already in the public opinion, and people are viscerally roasting them in the comments, making fun of them. The first comment in this article says, yet another, credited to Jerry, says, quote, yet another reason I won't buy any GM vehicles. Jackie says, another reason not to buy the crappy cars. 5 says, quote, this issue plus GM's abandonment of CarPlay and Android Auto make it absolutely impossible to consider buying from them. And again, this is a small sample size of just, comments on this article, but yeah, I gotta say, GM, yet another reason not to like your products and invading your privacy. Gotta say, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you can click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.